Welcome to Fearless with Jason Whitlock. I'm Jason Whitlock, your host. Happy Saturday. Thanks for joining me. Special content for you on a Saturday. What a treat. Thank you so much for being a Blaze TV subscriber and supporter of Fearless. This episode, like every episode, is brought to you by our good friends at Good Ranchers. Use my promo code FEARLESS at checkout. When you go to goodranchers.com, use my promo code FEARLESS at checkout. With that, in your subscription, you can claim $100 off and free smoked brats for a year while supporting veterans this Independence Day. It's time to revolt and claim your independence from the grocery store meat aisle. Today's topic, we'll see, man, where's Whitlock going? Why is he picking on these guys? Why is he talking about Michael Smith and Michael Holley? They're kind of off the radar, and many of you may not even, and I'm not saying this disparagingly, you may not know who I'm talking about, but you should. Michael Smith was Jemele Hill's partner on ESPN on The Six, and he had a pretty significant 10-year maybe run at ESPN, previously worked at the Boston Globe. You should be familiar with Michael Smith. Michael Holley was a pretty well-known sports columnist, I believe, in Boston, briefly in Chicago. I think spent some time at the Akron Beacon Journal. He was on ESPN, I think, Around the Horn, perhaps for a time. I know that he was on Jemele Hill and Michael Smith's show, Numbers Never Lie, or His and Hers, or whatever. Anyway, these guys were, they're Michael Holley's maybe 5 years younger than me, and Michael Smith's probably 10, 12, 13 years younger than me, somewhere in that range. These guys kind of had next. They were the next iteration of myself and Michael Wilbon and Bill Rhoden and, Ralph Wiley. These guys were the young generation that came up behind me. And Michael Smith had his career undermined and destroyed by Jemele Hill and her political move on ESPN. Remember, they were the host of the 6 o'clock Sports Center for about a year. But 4 years ago, these two, who worked briefly together at the Boston Globe, NBC Peacock gave them a show that was televised on the Peacock Network and anywhere podcasts were shown. It was called Brother from Another Mother, or Brother from Another, Brother from Another. And it was started 4 years ago. About a week ago, they did a show announcing that NBC Peacock had canceled their show. And I found it very fascinating what they discussed for about 45 minutes, an hour on their closing show. They disclosed a lot of interesting information that I think is worthy of talking about. And I'm doing this show, one, to educate the broader audience, but also to underscore a point to young journalists, particularly African-American, Black journalists, and Black American journalists coming up. There's a lesson to be learned from Michael Holley and Michael Smith and what has happened to them in their careers. And so I want to start off by first playing, and I want to be crystal clear before I say it. I want to be crystal clear. I like Michael Smith and Michael Holley. I'm not in any way doing this to disparage them. Michael Holley and Michael Holley probably don't like me. I used to know them. We were press box friendly, never great friends, but press box friendly. Again, these guys are younger than me, worked in a different area of the country, and I was ahead of them by some years and by accomplishment. But listen, they probably don't like me, but I did like them and had respect for them and saw their talent. I'm not saying anything that comes out of my mouth to disparage them, but I do want to use them as a lesson for everybody, and particularly for young Black journalists, about what it is they're doing and what can be discerned and learned from what's transpiring with Michael Smith and Michael Holley. So I want to play you this clip. They did their final show, like I said, about a week ago, where they announced that NBC had canceled their show. and they were pretty transparent about what had transpired. And so I want you to listen to this. It's about a 2-minute clip where at some point Michael Holley pivots in and explains how their show together, Brother from Another, how it even came about. Play the clip.
Which is one of the single greatest achievements of my career, which is not saying much, but getting a group of white people to sign off on a show called Brother from Another. I will forever not be, I will always be proud of that. I will always be proud that they said, you know what, okay. You know?
I remember it. It was like it was the funniest thing. It was the funniest thing. And I don't know if you remember it this way.
It was the you know what it was? Michael, you know what it was? Real quick, you know what it was? It was the most 2020 post-George Floyd thing ever, was to allow us to call this show Brother from Another. That's right. In any other year, any other circumstance, probably would have got shot down. Probably would have said no.
They would be like, hell no. Hell no, hell no. But it was the funniest thing, because I remember you started. It was the summer of 2020 when the show started. And I just want to keep reminding people how the show began. I think it's important to remember that. Just so the story needs to be told definitively and correctly. I believe in that. Telling stories thoroughly, not with a slant to the left, a slant to the right, right down the middle. This is what happened. Peacock was going to unveil its programming. To my understanding, there were no brothers or sisters in the programming. And then George Floyd happened. Okay, George Floyd happened. And then I was asked, hey, would you be interested in doing something? Would you be interested in doing a show on Peacock? And would you be interested in doing it by yourself? Or if you would want to do it with someone else? And at that point, when I heard or if, I knew exactly who that person was going to be. That person had to be Michael Smith. And so that's how the show started in the summer of 2020, with a lot of protest and a lot of reckoning, or some people called it a reckoning.
I'm not interested in destroying these guys or belittling these guys, but I do want to make it crystal clear what they're acknowledging and what it means, what it signifies. If you wonder why so many black people are committed to the narrative that George Floyd was some sort of heroic figure that died in a heroic attempt to fight police brutality or whatever, why they're committed to that narrative, when all the factual evidence shows George Floyd overdosed on fentanyl, acted a fool for 20 straight minutes, uncooperative with the police, and that his resistance and struggling and fighting, mixed with the fentanyl, caused him to expire on May 25th, 2020. I think that's the day that St. George Floyd ascended to heaven. Derek Chauvin did not kill George Floyd, and everybody knows it. Common sense. And the reason why, and trust me, there will be black people that will watch this and will email, text, or talk to you and say, oh my God, it's crazy. Derek Chauvin kneeled on his neck and that's it, blah, blah, blah. The reason they're so committed to that is because there are rewards for being committed to that. These men just acknowledged NBC hadn't given a single thought to giving them a show. And then George Floyd happened and they were like, oh my God, we got to get some black guys in here and give them a show so that we can be in line with the whole George Floyd movement. George Floyd is a tool for many black elites, educated, corporate black elites, to acquire power, job, status in the corporate industry. They're all standing on the back and neck of George Floyd and using him to advance their career. And many of them not really even ashamed of it. Think, this is what you should do to black drug addicts and career criminals. Of course, you should stand on their back and necks and get a better job, because if it wasn't for racism, George Floyd wouldn't be addicted to fentanyl, and he would have some high-powered corporate position. And so in honoring George Floyd, I'm going to stand on his back and neck, and I'm going to get that job. I'm going to get that opportunity by guilt-tripping and leveraging white guilt into an opportunity for me. I'm not saying this to disparage Michael Smith and Mike Holley, but those are the facts. George Floyd is a tool for career advancement, and people are committed to supporting that narrative because it advances their career, makes white people feel guilty, and it makes white people in power give black people things they otherwise would not give them. George Floyd is a part of the reparations movement. However, that grab for power, the using of George Floyd, it has an expiration date. And we are here at the expiration date. The instant gratification of the 4 years of opportunity that George Floyd provided is now over. And so Michael Holley and Michael Smith are being judged on the merits of what they produced from their George Floyd scholarship. It's time to graduate. And what NBC and Peacock have said is, we gave you something. And in this interview, you should watch the whole thing. Again, it's about 45 minutes to an hour. They acknowledge that NBC Peacock stood out of the way. And you know what, you guys? You do the show however you want. You want to call it Brother from Another, whatever you want to do, you do. They did not interfere. They said, black people, here's your George Floyd scholarship. Take whatever class you want. Study as much as you want. If you want to turn in homework, if you don't want to turn in homework, just do whatever you want to do. You're on a full ride scholarship for 4 years. The graduation ceremony has led Michael Holley and Michael Smith to the unemployment line. Again, you watch this clip and you watch the whole show, you can hear that they're upset. They don't, what do you mean? Why are they taking it? They haven't given us an explanation why the show is over, why they're canceling the show. They're canceling the show because it didn't rate, it didn't draw a big enough audience, it doesn't fit what NBC Peacock really wanted to do, or they would have come up with this plan before George Floyd if it was what they really wanted to do. So the 4-year full ride scholarship is over, and now these guys got to stand on their own 2 feet, and NBC has told them, go stand someplace else. I want to play you another clip, and this is important to my overall point that I haven't even gotten there yet, but I want to play you this clip because these guys are really good guys. And I say that having known them a little bit before, but then just even watching them from afar. These are good dudes that woke, diversity, equity, inclusion, affirmative action, black reparations, black racial idolatry destroyed these guys. They don't even know it. Other people watching don't know it, but it's so crystal clear that these are 2 young, or previously young, talented guys that if they embraced the right mindset would have built something significant with their careers and with their opportunities, but because they bought into black victimhood and black racial idolatry, they ended up producing nothing sustainable. So I want to play you this clip of why I argue these are good guys. It's about 1:50. Michael Smith cries at some point. Let's play that clip.
Have been through something, and you don't even understand how, I've told you this before, you don't understand how you have strengthened my faith by listening to you. And you had a sermon the other day, you don't even know. You had a sermon a couple of weeks ago. I don't know if you remember this conversation, Mike. You said, I have not panicked because every time I start to panic, God shows up to let me know it's God and it can't be anybody else. So that moved me. And I don't know, you do what you feel like, you say what you want to say, and if you don't want to say anything, that's all right too. But I just want people to know that.
I appreciate. Yeah. Well, I appreciate that. Now's not the time to tell the whole story. I will tell that story. You know, I will give this testimony in greater detail, but I would say I would go back to you, and I would also say, like, you know, this whole year. I mean, I've been going a lot, you know, and it's for good reason. And you know, I would start with you, man, for holding it down and keeping it real in my absence and keeping this thing going. And let's go back to the beginning. Thank you for thinking of me, you know, and bringing me out of retirement.
I'm playing that clip to establish to you all, the audience, these are good dudes. At some point in here, I think they mentioned that both of them are grandsons of pastors. Michael Smith is wearing a hoodie or a sweatshirt or t-shirt that says, "I'm just out here trusting God." These guys consider themselves and are trying to walk the Christian walk. And they support it. It sounds like Michael Smith was going through some sort of personal struggle, and Michael Holley tried to carry the load of the show while Michael Smith worked out his personal issues or whatever was going on that was causing anxiety and pain in his life. These two guys had each other's back. They're trying to walk the Christian walk. These are good guys. And this is what is so troubling to me because, again, I know the beginnings of their career, and Mike Holley, in some little bit of detail, and Michael Smith, they talked about, in this farewell podcast, talked about the origins of their career and how Mike Holley talked about since he was like a 10, 11-year-old kid, he knew he wanted to be a journalist. He knew he wanted to be a storyteller. Michael Smith at age 20 is getting an internship with the Boston Globe, and his career got off to a good, substantive start early on in his career. And I say all that to say these two guys were raised properly. These two guys have a Christian faith, and they're good people. And they had talent. They had talent. These guys aren't Stephen A. Smith. These guys had actual journalistic talent. And if discipled properly, if not baked in the mindset of victimhood and racial idolatry, these guys would have built something significant and substantial and sustainable that they would not be reliant on the charity of white liberals and of white people trying to get over their guilty feelings about George Floyd. These two young men could have been great journalists. Racial idolatry ruined them. And I say that, and I'm going to play one final clip about what the gist and point of view of their show was. They got so caught up in racial idolatry and that victimhood mindset that they can't see clearly, and that they weren't sitting there focused on, hey, what can I bring unique and sustainable to the podcast world, to the TV space, to a show, to the conversation about sports? What can I bring unique, honest, consistent with their biblical worldview, or with a proper biblical worldview? What could I bring that's sustainable? They didn't do that. They instead, because of they bought into racial idolatry, because they bought into the victim mentality, because they bought into what's popular over Twitter. They basically did a show that was, I'm black, I'm blackity black, I'm black. This is the blackity blackest black show in the history of blackity black TV. And they're capable of so much more. Michael Smith could have been, I mean, there's a bunch of different paths he could have gone. He could have been Black Adam Schefter, a news hound, a newsbreaker of NFL news. Michael Holley could have been one of the great storytellers. Maybe he's in a Black Wright Thompson, tremendous storyteller and journalist. Instead, they got an opportunity from NBC Peacock and said, you know what, we're going to build the blackest show on the internet. And man, we're just going to be black, 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 black. There's no substance there. That's not sustainable. You can get that anywhere. Any group of idiots can do that. They played a highlight compilation at the end of their show, and I just want to give you a tiny sense of what 50, 60% of their highlights were about.
Chase Young going to the Niners. What the hell is this?
First of all, this is the most blackest thing I've ever seen right now.
It's over. It's over. This is a black show, man. We ain't got the kind of resources.
I was doing the warm-up show and stuff like that. Hey, you know.
Welcome, Michael Holley, to your own watch party. I let the people know you are running on CP time per usual. I know a lot of people have some issues with the light skins running the league, but that is what it is, okay? That is what it is.
If I made an obscene gesture on camera right now, could y'all bleep it out or no? Probably not a good idea to do that. What do you think? Like I make obscene.
I should take my earpiece.
That's what they brought to the table. We blackity blackity black, y'all. They again, this is what I've said. They're following their Christian path as best as they understand it. If discipled properly, there's at some point during their deal, because I didn't watch a lot of their show, but I guess on Wednesdays, Brother from Another, that's the title, Brother from Another, on Wednesdays, they would turn their show over to black women. And then on Fridays, they would turn their show over to black women. And so here are two Christian men, that want to lean into their Christian identity, grew up in families where grandfathers were pastors, and all they can think to do is, hey, how can I use my platform to promote the matriarchy? How can I use my platform to promote these black queens? Let me turn my show over to the matriarchy. In a space and an opportunity and an understanding, again, this is if they were discipled properly, because these guys, I'm telling you, they were legitimate journalists at one point. They had the talent and they're good people. If they understood, like, man, you know what? This whole world, this whole corporate system, this whole sports media platform is bent over and trying to platform and establish the black woman point of view in the sports world. They're doing everything in their power to empower them. No one is doing anything to empower legitimate black journalists. That if they understood, because trust, Michael Smith and Michael Holley, they'll be offended I said this and they'll say this is not true, but it's a fact. They have 20 times the journalistic chops of Stephen A. Smith, and trust me, they know it. They know Stephen A. is a clown. And then they're looking at all the athletes who have no journalistic training and have platforms for days and opportunities today. You're in charge of the media. They have no journalistic chops. And they're being made hosts of shows, not contributors. They're the hosts. They're the driving force. They're dominating the entire conversation. And here's two guys. And Michael Holley acknowledged he was never an athlete. I'm not sure if Michael Smith was ever an athlete. But these guys were legitimate journalists. And they know that black male legitimate journalists have virtually no standing in mainstream sports media. No standing. And instead of trying to build something that showcases and inspires that, hey man, let me see if I can platform some Yas queens on Wednesdays and Fridays. They don't want to be leaders. And they're built for leadership. They have the intellect, the talent, and the proper upbringing, if they actually understood a biblical worldview, to be leaders and to build platforms that showcase their intellectual capabilities, not their skin color. And so I'm sad because other young black journalists will look at this, look at their explanation of their show. They got, and NBC, look how racist they were. They took away Michael Smith and Michael Holley's scholarship money. And don't they know what we have to offer? Don't they know how black we can be on TV? Don't they know that everybody wants to see us be black? And bottom line, what they're doing, and they're unaware. It's just like they're turning black journalists into rappers. Because that's what rappers do. I used to cover and write about hip hop. I can remember Russell Simmons, when I was working at the Charlotte Observer, once gave me a quote about hip hop and, oh, what a great time it is to be black and to just be blackity black. And this was like in the 90s. And so that's what rap is all about. Let me just show everybody how black I am. And when you're a Christian, you should have an unbelievable understanding. Man, you know how much I got to offer the world that has nothing to do with my skin color? Do you know how unimportant my skin color actually is? I have nothing to do with it. It's not what I have to offer the world. It's my intellect. It's my ideas. It's my discernment. It's my wisdom through my biblical knowledge that I can pass on. Sad. Too many, this diversity, equity, and inclusion, affirmative action, woke, Black Twitter, it destroys our best and brightest. It diminishes them. It makes them get up every day and think their life purpose is, let me show everybody how black I am. It's the equivalent of me waking up and saying, let me show everybody how fat I am. That takes no effort. That takes no work. It brings no value. I walk through the door and everybody, yeah, Whitlock's overweight. I don't need to put any effort into that. Oh, yeah, Whitlock's got dark skin. I don't have to tell anybody that. It doesn't say anything about me. I want people, man, Whitlock's a hell of a journalist. Man, he uncovers truth. He disearns truth at a higher rate than other people. He exposes truth. He exposes fraudulence at a higher rate than other people. He points to a proper path quicker and more cleverly than other people. Whitlock, he's a journalist. Both of these guys had that kind of potential and talent. Instead, they're sitting around bragging about, man, we named our show Brother from Another. We came up with the blackest name we could think of. I'm telling you, I like these guys. They're good people. But there's, our differences is just in worldview. The Bible I'm not saying this to say, look how great I am. But the Bible repeatedly tells us to be fearless. That's what inspired the name of this show. 2020, I'm looking at everybody run around in fear. Oh, I may get COVID. I may die. Oh, God. Let me stay in the house. I'm so afraid. I'm looking at everybody being controlled by fear. And I'm like, man, the Bible tells us not to fear over and over and over and over again. You know what I want to put out into the world? Why you should be fearless. I'm going to call my show Fearless. Brother from another mother? They explain, I can't believe white people let us call it brother from another. That's the blackest thing. What a moment. It's one of my greatest accomplishments. Coming up with a name that made white people go, oh, we're going to really let them. That's not a contribution. That's not building the kingdom. That's not making an impact on the world, gentlemen. And both of you were capable of it. If you're willing to perform for an audience of one. And I'm not that audience. It's God. And you know it. It's on the front of your shirt, Michael. Perform for him and watch the rewards that come your way and watch how he provides and how you won't be dependent on some scholarship to be given away by NBC Peacock because some career criminal died. You're better than that. You don't need charity off of George Floyd's death. That's today's show. Play tomorrow. We'll see you next week.
Waiting for the countdown, coming off the breakdown, standing in line for freedom. Looking for a breakout, feeling like a standoff, nothing in life like freedom. Came in like a fighter, striking like a ladder, making all these moves for freedom. I want freedom. No negotiation, my sister, no relation. We all just wanna have freedom. Sitting on a corner, never been alone. I'm breaking my back for freedom. Blessed, we are living, get back. We are receiving, no deceiving. We all wanna be free. We want freedom. I wanna be.